Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of your six-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guessman, coming to you on a Thursday, August 28th. LA Galaxy 0-2 losers to Seattle Sounders on Wednesday night. Yes, that was just last night. Feels like so long ago, though, already. The Galaxy now playing in the third place game coming up on Sunday. That game, 2 p.m. We'll talk about that as we go. And remember, the Saturday game is supposed to be against FC Dallas. That got rescheduled. I think it's in October sometime. I'll show you the schedule here in a little bit. Just don't want you showing up on Saturday being upset there's no game. There is no game on Saturday. The game is now on Sunday for a third place game. And by default, the biggest game the LA Galaxy have played this season, although it's certainly without the shine and luster that it could have been had the LA Galaxy been hosting a team like Inter Miami, let's say, at Dignity Health Sports Park. So, we're going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about what the LA Galaxy will need to do in order to, hopefully find a path to victory against Orlando City. But I think there's a lot to talk about just in terms of the game itself, right? What happened? Why another shutout for Seattle? Why another sort of lackluster performance from the LA Galaxy? I'm gonna, maybe a spoiler a little bit for you, but one of the big reasons that the LA Galaxy lost this game is because Seattle's really good and the Galaxy aren't, right? So I think we're ready for real truths. That's a real truth. That's an easy one. Talked to a bunch of the guys after the game last night and certainly got to hear their perspectives. One, on the loss. Two, on just how the game played out. And three, sort of on what they thought of Seattle. I am tipping Seattle now to be an MLS Cup favorite. I was sort of feeling that way when the Galaxy played them last time. There just don't seem to be a lot of weaknesses in what they're trying to do. But then again, they're playing against the LA Galaxy. So much like people were saying, hey, that Colorado game, that the guys should play that game all the time. The Galaxy should play that lineup at the same time. Roll the kids out again in this one. By the way, this is what drives me crazy is that you'll never be satisfied. Yes, the Galaxy didn't win, so the second guess there is to say, oh, we'll play the same guys that you played the game against Colorado. If the Galaxy would have played those guys, the younger team against, Seattle, I don't imagine the outcome would have been very much different. And then, somebody would have gotten yelled at for starting the kids instead of starting and resting the starters. There's lots to unpack, I think, from the game as well, but just disappointing. I think that's the big thing. It's 1-0 at halftime. You think that maybe the Galaxy can sort of get away with, trying to come after them and trying to find some things that they had some success in. The Galaxy did in the first half at least have a couple dangerous chances that you were like, okay, something's starting to build a little bit. And then watching that sort of fold into the second half and just how poor that was. So, the Galaxy in many ways, fell so short of where they were trying to go. This was sort of can the Galaxy play big games? Can the Galaxy win big games in 2025? Have they learned enough since starting winless in 16? Has there been an adjustment enough? Because the Galaxy have been playing some better soccer here throughout the dog days of summer. But you wanted to see what they would do in a big game because realistically they haven't played any big games this year. So many times they've gone out and fallen flat. And, Seattle certainly has their number, but the Galaxy fell flat. In a game where, and I think Greg Vandy said this, in a game where the Galaxy couldn't afford to make mistakes, they made so many mistakes. Maya Yoshida, I think, will try to say it's 2. I think it's more than 2, quite honestly. Funny enough, there's a player on the LA Galaxy who had both a really good game and a really poor game. And whenever you're talking about Novak Mitrovic, it's sort of hard to say one without the other. He had a very poor start to this game, and somehow still came up with some amazing saves. And thanks to the fact that De Rosario couldn't apparently figure out how to shoot around him, except for whenever he scores the second goal and has to body his weight past 2 guys who, are bigger than him and probably stronger than him. It doesn't matter for De Rosario. If De Rosario had any sort of finishing ability, this game is 4-0 or 5-0, and it runs away real fast from the LA Galaxy. So not a good start. There's let's set aside everything. I was at U7, soccer training today because my youngest is playing U7s, and it's humbling. Soccer's not easy. It's not easy to teach. A lot of us grew up with it, and it's inherent in our blood. My son, strangely enough, you would think it should be inherent. I mean, Dad watches soccer all the time. Dad kicks the ball around all the time. You would think there's definitely a gift for it that you're born with, in some ways. And so watching him I got yelled at today. That's really where I wanted to go with this. I got yelled at today by my kid because I was trying to show him how to shade and shadow to the ball in a lane, right? They had 3 lanes, and we were trying to sort of stay in one lane. And I got told that I didn't know what I was talking about. He goes, you don't know what you're talking about. Coach says I do this. I'm like, okay, then go ahead, listen to Coach. Let's make sure we do that. And then there were tears, mostly from me, as I went back to my wife and said, he told me I didn't know what I was talking about. So if any of you feel after this show that I don't know what I'm talking about, I want you to know that you and my 5.5-year-old feel this exact same way. So just to sort of kick that off in the right direction for all of this. There's going to be a point, and it's past more that there's going to be a point where everything just sort of switches, and you look over and you're like, okay, so everything's a 2026 thing now. And I feel like we've been playing that in the league like that for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks. So that's nothing new, but there was still this hope inherent in the LA Galaxy, inherent in, I think, in the fan base, that they could figure out how to win Leagues Cup. And the matchups were good. There were lots of questions, and I know Greg Vanny answered them in some way, and I'll answer them in a different way, mostly because my answers aren't going to be broadcast to a worldwide press that would take this the absolute wrong way. But there's a question mark about why the LA Galaxy had success against the Mexican teams in Liga MX in Leagues Cup, and have struggled, with quote unquote MLS teams the entire year, including Seattle now twice. One in Leagues Cup and one not. And the answer is that the MLS teams, at least recently, have been more or less better than a lot of the Liga MX teams that are just starting their season. And it's the same argument we're going to see whenever it's Concacaf Champions Cup and everything else that goes on, that, MLS is just a few weeks into its season and you're expecting them to play at this high level. And, the Liga MX teams, same thing. And I don't know that we're ever going to get the right balance for that. Maybe when the schedule shifts, after, I think, in 2027, maybe we'll finally see some things line up a little bit where you're actually getting these 2 leagues playing on the same footing. But the bottom line is, and MLS was heralding it, of course, $336 million, I think, in the summer transfer window sort of changed hands, making it, I think, the 8th highest spending league in all of soccer and around the world, and that's an interesting thing to sort of look at. I mean, the LA Galaxy didn't even do that, didn't do anything in that, and yet we still have to sort of talk about that. But the bottom line is priorities are shifting. They will shift completely after Sunday and the 3rd place game. And of course, we realize and we understand, because we are informed people on this show, is that the LA Galaxy are playing for a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot. And so there still is a lot to play for. I will certainly be doubtful about whether this team rebounds from this loss to Seattle, because I saw a lot of really disappointed people. And I don't know that they should be that disappointed, because the outcome was not a surprising one whenever you watch the 4-0 win. You just expected maybe the effort or there was a change in something, or something would have been different the second time around. And I think there's reasons for all of that. But let's get to the starting lineup so we can start, and then we can start talking. And usually whenever I do solo shows, I like to break it down into, a little more individual bites. And being I have things I want to talk about, and I'll see stuff from you guys. I will, we'll try to sort of figure out some different things. One is the lineup is absolutely not a 4-5-1, so that's cute that they thought that that's how that was going to line up. It's still 4-3-3. But Miguel Berry started up top. It was Diego Fagundes, Edwin Cerrillo, and Marco Royce in that center spot. Up with Miguel Berry was Joseph Paintsel and Gabriel Peck, as they normally are. On the back line, you had Julian Aude, you had Zonka, you had Yoshida, you had Cuevas, and then you had Mitrovic. That was how that started. The big deal here is that there is no Miro Garces, and there were signs and indications that he would have been available for this. In fact, Greg Vanney talked about, Nascimento being the big question mark at his press conference, but we had never heard anything about Miro Garces in terms of we were told that he was on a path to playing, and we expected that he would play, and then he did not play in this game. You're missing two really big pieces to the Galaxy's success as of late. One is Miro Garces, and I flash this line on occasion, but one of the most talented players the LA Galaxy have on the field, one of the speediest. He offsets the slowness of either, Zonka or Yoshida. And we look at Zonka and Yoshida paired together, we know that's going to be a slow pairing. There is no other real pairing that the Galaxy have played with. I know people want to get some Chris Rindolph. Maybe we'll see him, in the third place game, because I certainly don't think if Miro Garces is not going to be playing in the third place game coming up on Sunday, I think you need something different back there because it is too slow, and we know that that's too slow. We've seen that throughout the entirety of this season, that Zonka and Yoshida get themselves caught into different positions and then, don't have the speed to recover. What we've seen whenever Miro Garces is on the field is that Miro Garces provides that speed, provides that recovery, provides the physicality, because quite honestly, I don't think Yoshida and Zonka are very physical. Go watch the De Rosario game or goal. So that was a big hit for them. The Galaxy's midfield is a little bit better whenever Miro Garces is playing as well, just because Miro Garces covers more ground. He'll track into the midfield, he'll cause and help problems, and then he'll, dish off to Cerrillo, and Cerrillo sort of has a partner back there because Garces will routinely challenge above the back line. So he'll come out. Zonka in this game routinely challenged above the back line, stepping out to a man. Seattle wanting you to step out and to confront, so that way you can drag the line here, there, and everywhere that they want to put it. So you need somebody with Miro Garces' talent to sort of be able to handle that, I think, a little bit better. That being said, whenever you don't have a Miro Garces, this is what happens in your lineup. And one of the reasons I think the Galaxy defense has been playing well in the tournament and has been doing a little bit better is we've seen a more controlled, more stable, more MLS Cup-like Miro Garces as of late. He's what makes this defense passable, and passable is the best term that you can call it. Maya Yoshida actually had some words after the game talking about this defense. I'll play you here in a little bit. But, even he's saying, it has never been good enough this year. That was basically his thing. And by the way, it was never good enough last year either. But Miro Garces does allow it to play, a little bit better. There's a little more recovery, so that when you do make mistakes, Miro Garces can get in there and sort of help out. The other thing that is interesting to me is that, yes, you have Yoshida, and yes, you have Zonka, and yes, you're worried about the speed there. But you also have Aude on the outside, which is a speedy player. You have Cuevas on the outside, which is a speedy player. But they tend to be more up the line and less helping out into the center back positions. John Nelson, whenever he came on, he tucks in a little bit more than Aude. Aude wants to hit the line and get out to a little bit of side there. And for me, you need somebody who's going to help out the center backs whenever you have a pairing that's of Zonka and Yoshida. There's going to be some real question marks over both of these players in the offseason. I was going through rosters and sort of looking at contracts and everything. And so Yoshida still has another year on his deal. Zonka has another year on his deal. So both guys still in on 2026. But at, $600,000, there's going to be real questions about Zonka and whether or not maybe they could possibly do something with him in the offseason, I believe. See, I feel like you're going to be stuck with Yoshida, and that may or may not be a good thing. I don't mean that in a pejorative way or a negative way. I don't mean that at all. But at his salary, at $525,000, there's not much of a pay cut you're going to be able to put on Yoshida. At $600,000 and a contract for next year, Zonka still has everything sort of in his yard to be able to hold that and sort of demand that the Galaxy keep him. And then if they keep him, they're going to have to play him because at $600,000, you don't want him sitting on the bench. But there's got to be something there. I really feel like it's going to be Garces in a CB1, and then you could have Yoshida as a backup for next year. And there's going to be rotations through all of that as well. I think this is not that it matters because it certainly doesn't hit the cap. But Eric Zavaleta, I don't think that he's around after this year. He was on a 1-year deal, so that's gone. Jalen Neal left earlier. Jalen struggled through a whole bunch of things. Currently with appendicitis, but just hasn't played at all. I know a lot of people I saw the wants and needs and sort of saying, oh, I wish the Galaxy would have kept Jalen Neal. I love Jalen Neal 100%, but he has not stayed healthy, and he's on a U22 deal with Montreal right now. So I don't think he would have been any help had he stayed if the injuries stayed consistent and sort of the outs that he's had to miss and do that. But there needs to be something better at that center back position. The CB1 position needs to sort of be taken over. So many times I think the Galaxy have gone international for that. And listen, there aren't a ton of domestic center backs that you're like, oh, absolutely, that fits. And you want somebody who's a little more veteran, sort of to pair with the Garces and everything else. The Galaxy have to figure that out. I think that's a big offseason need that they do, because we see what happens when Yoshida and Zonka play next to each other. We see the slowness and how the plays, especially with quick players like De Rosario or Seattle, just the way that they run at you with different angles and force you to cut and move in behind, cause problems. And Yoshida and Zonka are not up to it. I did get a text message from somebody, I won't say who, but they were like, Zonka and Yoshida against a good Seattle team, see you in the third place game. That was before the game. And listen, I don't know that there's much you could have done. Starting Eric Zavaleta in there doesn't help you. Maybe you do Chris Rindolph, but that's a tough spot to ask him to be put into. It really is. Now, in hindsight, would it have been any worse? Probably not. Right. And maybe you're going to play him from here on out for the rest of the year. Maybe he gets some third place game time, that type of thing. In all hopefulness, I did see Amiro Garces after the game, and he was walking by me, so it wasn't like anything official. I'm like, Amiro, how you feeling? And he's like, good. I'm like, next game? He goes, we'll see. And they don't ever want to tell you. Players don't want to tell you whether they're back or whatever it is. I think that there's some hope there. And, Nascimento, I saw him walking, and he's another big reason I think the Galaxy struggled. They needed the 9 in this particular lineup, in this particular formation, playing against Seattle. You needed somebody who was going to hold things up. I didn't want Royce as a false 9 because I felt like that probably didn't provide enough offense for the LA Galaxy to sort of play into that. And so they did, I think, is the next best thing, which is put in Miguel Berry, by the way. Not saying it's a great solution to the problem, but that is the next best thing. There's a lot of second guessing on why Christian Ramirez didn't get the start. And those are going to be mostly from people who have not watched the LA Galaxy play this year with Christian Ramirez whenever he's played. Really like Christian, think he's great player, all those things. For whatever reason, he doesn't work real well with this particular lineup. And part of that, I think, is crossing and just the lack of crosses in a space that Christian Ramirez likes. The only thing that I could sort of put to the counter of that is that when you have Mauricio Cuevas, who starts on the right-hand side, you have the best crosser of the ball, and you did see at least one pass, I think, try to get around the corner and try to find Christian Ramirez whenever he came into the game. But Miguel Berry is still going to be your best hold-up guy to play because Christian Ramirez has not played that hold-up. Maybe it's a failure of Vanny this year that he wasn't able to work Christian Ramirez, who the Galaxy are spending, a fairly considerable amount of money on, to get him worked into the lineup and get him working, because he is a proven goal scorer. He is a guy who can certainly put the ball in the back of the net, but for whatever reason, everything we've seen this year, at $570,000 on Christian Ramirez, he's sitting on the bench. And so in this particular game with the way that I've seen things play, I understand the Miguel Berry start. But if Nascimento is healthy in this game, again, I think it's a little more indicative of what the LA Galaxy possibly could do whenever they have their better starting lineup. And I don't think Nascimento is some magic pill the Galaxy can swallow and suddenly be better at. But I do think that he plays at least in the way that the Galaxy feel comfortable playing, and he's the best example of that on the team in that position. So no Nascimento, no Amiro Garces. This is, overall you're putting the best players on the field for the Galaxy. Keeping Yamane off is an interesting one, but Mauricio Cuevas has been really playing well at that right back. There's going to be a point in time, I think, in the offseason where you ask yourself if you keep Miki Yamane for next season, because Yamane is an expensive piece as well at almost, $845,000. And are you getting enough out of Mauricio Cuevas that you could promote Cuevas, who currently, by the way, is a homegrown player, doesn't even hit the cap and is making 168? So do you elevate him to starter and you move Yamane, somewhere in order to try to free up some more room? And Yamane is a 2026 contract, right? So he still has another year on his, so there's still some transfer wiggle room in there. So that's going to be, I think, another question, and certainly one that gets raised from just how the LA Galaxy are playing. And I think we're going to start answering and asking more questions as we get away from the third place game, get back into league, have 7 games left or something like that at this point in the league. So you're going to see these questions be raised. Maybe the play answers some of these, and you start to figure out where the LA Galaxy are going just in terms of roster building for 2026, because that's really where you're at right now. The third place game is going to become really important because it's a Concacaf Champions Cup spot. Ricky Puig coming back, and again, Greg Vanney said he had some quote-unquote big tests, I think 2 big tests that he had to pass before they would do it. My tip-off that Ricky Puig is ready to play is when the Galaxy lay down the cash for the international slot, or they move somebody around for the international slot. That's my big. That's when it'll happen. That's when you'll know. That's the siren, much like Taylor Swift getting engaged. Yeah, everybody will know whenever Ricky Puig is back, because there will be signs. You will know. By the way, personally, very, very excited for all that. I was first to know in my family. I had to call my wife. She had no idea. It was very fun for me. Anyway, so we go back to the game because I want to stick with this still, because there's still things in this that just baffled. And you would expect a team that was just this deep in the season, that's playing in the semifinals, to have answers for. And again, I asked the question before, is this team, can this team play big games and win big games? In 2024, we had answers that, yes, they matched the moment in the big games. Probably wasn't until the last, maybe 7 or 8 games of the season that we really believed that. But watching them play throughout the year, you're sort of like, yes, they do like big moments. They do like to play in these big places. And this was a chance for the Galaxy in front of more than 16,000 people, which I thought was a lot for a Wednesday night, to play Seattle, who is, I would consider, an MLS Cup favorite, one of them for sure. And this is the big game for that. And the bottom line is that no matter how you look at this, the LA Galaxy had a chance to keep this game at zeros thanks to some wonderful goalkeeping from Novak Mitrovic. And instead, it's Mitrovic who really makes the biggest mistake of the night, and probably the one that sets the tone. I talked last time about Harbor Miller scoring the early goal against Colorado and sort of putting the doubt into Colorado, and Colorado's like, wait, we thought this was going to be an easy game. What the hell is this? Harbor Miller just scored. Who is that kid? Do I have to look him up? That's what happened to Seattle. That's what happened to the Galaxy this time. I pulled some screenshots because I think it's worth going through a little bit, and we can talk. And I'll try my best, for those of you just listening on the podcast only and you have no visuals, to talk about the play that results in Seattle's first goal. I think it was Ferreira who sort of played in De Rosario, who is running sort of in this slot channel, and he's off Zonka's left shoulder. And Zonka's already turning to face the goal because the ball's been slotted in behind him. So we already know that there's a chase going on here. Now, Yoshida's in a good position to sort of force some of the action and which direction he wants to force it into, but he's got to get caught up to speed real fast too, because De Rosario's quick. I'm not going to say he's super fast, but he's quick. So he's going to cause problems in this. And so that's the initial ball is sort of the one that we see as it slides back behind Zonka, and you want Zonka to sort of be able to put some pressure on that if he can, but he's not able to catch this ball. De Rosario is going to get to it, and now De Rosario is storming at the goal, more or less one-on-one, right? And we won't call it one-on-one because eventually things start to close down a little bit. Julian Aude makes his run back, and so eventually De Rosario is able to get a shot off, but it's not the shot that he wants. Novak Mitrovic is able to stop it. Now he coughs up a little rebound. The ball is being pushed outside of the post. But this is where the calamitous mistake sort of happens here, is that Zonka isn't that close to the ball. Mitrovic is the closest one to it. Cuevas, who was making a recovery run down the left-hand side, the obviously Mitrovic's right-hand side, but on the left-hand side of the play, he is moving back in the direction towards the ball, but he's not that close to it. And then what we see is Mitrovic call off Cuevas, as Cuevas has the speed, perhaps to beat Rothrock, who has now slipped in behind Aude and is tearing at the ball in this big rebound. And it's Mitrovic who calls off Cuevas in this line. Now, there's angles here that make it look like, Zonka standing right on top of the ball. In this particular case, I believe it's Cuevas who is pretty close to being the closest one to the ball. And then it is Mitrovic who is actually the closest Galaxy player. By calling him off, by calling Cuevas off, Cuevas stops. And if he keeps going, while it's not an easy play and there might be a collision in the box, I believe Cuevas and Rothrock get there at the same time. And what ends up happening instead is that Rothrock sort of is able to pass the ball back outside. There's a shot. Now Mitrovic sort of blocks it with his face and his shoulder, which is great, but the ball is a rebound out again. And then it was an incredible freaking near angle shot that sort of skirts between two players. But you need to see development from Mitrovic in a lot of different ways. And one of the big ways that you wanted to see development from Mitrovic is be able to handle situations in big games. He didn't. In fact, he may have caused this particular accident to sort of happen because it's just silliness. It's a lack of concentration. It's the defense not following up on shots. Yeah, Zonka can keep his run going there. The ball's already shot, so technically speaking, it's like where is he supposed to go on that one? To me, this isn't a Zonka thing, although I know people want to blame him for everything. On the initial ball and getting beat on the shoulder, that's where you can look at Zonka and sort of point to him. But Mitrovic calling off Cuevas in this particular case is the biggest mistake. And then, of course, Seattle scores, 7-8 minutes into the game. Now you're playing from behind. It's not a place you want to be. That being said, I thought the LA Galaxy played much better after the goal, right? You had Cuevas, who had maybe one of the better shots on the night, where he, cuts and chips inside the box on an overlap on the right-hand side. He's getting to the box. He chops one defender. He chops the second defender. He now has a chance. His left-footed shot is never going to go in, but it's the creativity to be able to create that space, and you can see what happens whenever you get Seattle flying around, overcommitting, and doing all those things. So that was one. It was Diego Fagundes who had probably the best shot of the night for the LA Galaxy, which was on a corner, and they took it short, and they eventually rotated the ball to the top of the top of the D at the top of the box, and it's Diego Fagundes with a right-footed shot that goes through traffic. Thomas, the goalkeeper, makes an absolutely wonderful save. If you want to talk about the man of the match, Thomas is great for that. And as by the way, as much as Mitrovic totally screwed the pooch on that first goal, he comes back and makes 3 or 4 one-on-one saves with De Rosario, who, again, if he could learn to finish, has 5 goals on the night or 3 goals on the night or something like that. So Mitrovic still ends up having a good game after this. The problem is that it's too late. If you go back even to the Western Conference Finals, right, where the LA Galaxy in 2024 are playing against Seattle, you see the makings of this exact team again, the Seattle team. The Galaxy jumped on one mistake that game. One mistake, and they didn't make any big ones, or they survived the big ones that they did make. And Seattle went home, 1-0, and they lose. This is that same team. I mean, this Seattle team is as good, or, possibly even better. I saw people saying this isn't the best version of Seattle, and I don't think it is either. They're still rotating through, injuries and everything else, but they have a deep team. They have the ability to adapt. And just the way that they play in an economical fashion, of which they know how hard to work, they know how hard to try, they know how to defend as a unit. I mean, I'm going to tell you something, and people may be shocked to know this. The LA Galaxy were playing up a man, for the final however many. Let's see, I'll go back to the red card so I can make sure I get the exact. But for the last 7 minutes plus stoppage time, the LA Galaxy are playing up a man. Could you tell that the LA Galaxy were playing up a man whenever Seattle lost Nuhu for the tackle on Gabriel Peck? Which, by the way, nasty little tackle. Didn't think it was that bad. Thought it was maybe an orange card whenever I first saw it, and then saw pictures and everything. It was not a good place for Nuhu to be. But this Seattle team is the same team that took the LA Galaxy to the Western Conference Finals, and had it not been for a single mistake, Seattle could have been hoisting an MLS Cup. The bottom line is the Galaxy made a ton of mistakes, and Seattle made very few. You score the first goal and you sort of allow them to sit back. The Galaxy have over 60% possession in this game, which usually happens whenever the Galaxy allow a first goal, right? So 61% possession to, 39% possession. Seattle didn't need the ball. They're comfortable in defense, and they're comfortable just absolutely clogging everything. Watch how well they clog the lanes. Watch the Galaxy get to the box and just turn around every time because there's nothing there. Compact, discipline, and the way that you'd want a team to play. It is 100% on the LA Galaxy not to make those mistakes. They knew it coming in, and they did it anyway. They had to be perfect, and you take away two of their more, I'm not going to call Nascimento dynamic, but certainly Amiro Garza's dynamic, and Nascimento who really can set the tone and help the LA Galaxy build into offense. What they needed more than anybody was somebody to be able to sort of chop and get their way through some of these lines, and the passing wasn't there. Marco Royce was very MIA in this particular game. I would point out that probably the reason for that is because Seattle's very good at isolating him and making sure that he doesn't get the ball. You couldn't afford to make mistakes in this game, and the Galaxy in 2025 aren't capable of playing without making mistakes. And so this game was sort of written in the stars for that, as far as I'm concerned. We can go through some of the other players and look at it. I mean, Gabriel Peck, how many times, that was a fun question that I was asking afterwards to different reporters and anybody I ran across on my way down to the press conferences. How many times did you see Gabriel Peck get in behind the defense? 0 times. How many times did you see Joseph Painsville get in behind the defense? 0 times, right? The shots were coming, but they're coming from around the box. This is when the LA Galaxy struggle. When they play against teams, they can pack the box, and LA finds no way to sort of get through. They tried different things, moving some people around. Christian Ramirez came in. Yamane came in to sort of help and try to create some of that as well. John Nelson takes over for Aude. That's actually a fun little things. By the way, Destructive says, it sounds like we were beat tactically. Yes, they were beat tactically because they're the better team. You can set up tactics that way you have some advantages sometimes. And the bottom line is it's going to be very hard for you to set up something tactically to find a way through a team when the team is as good and as disciplined as Seattle. You can take that with what it is. With the way the LA Galaxy have played in 2025, you're going to have to play perfectly, and the Galaxy play far from perfectly. Can't make mistakes, and they make mistakes. But Aude in the first half, playing like a man possessed. We've talked, I think, in recent times about the physicality of the LA Galaxy, right? By the way, it's Chris, $2 super chat says we need a Jet 2 holiday. Not wrong, Chris, 100%. And then Freddie says starters have no grit, wooden spoon. Here we come. I mean, I'll tell you right now, you're not going to play. You have to play Seattle one more time in this league, right? They're still coming up because we have Orlando there, and then you're going up to Seattle on September 13th to play. I mean, you're going to get beat there. But fortunately for the LA Galaxy, you're not always playing those guys, but you're going to play FC Cincinnati. I mean, that's a huge game. Just some better teams are coming down the stretch. The Galaxy are going to have trouble, sort of dealing with some of those better teams. They're not there this year. The good news is I think you're going to start seeing some guys come in and rotate. But let's talk about Julian Aude because I don't want to get off this. But we've talked about physicality so much, and I think I have, in particular, that the Galaxy wanted to be more physical, that against Miami, they only had 3 fouls, and you can't play that way against a team like Miami and expect that you're going to win. So, we saw an adjustment against, Pachuca whenever they played Pachuca, and that they were more physical. We saw an adjustment against Colorado, and the Galaxy were more physical. And so there was sort of this idea that being more physical would solve a lot more problems. And I think it solves some of the problems, unless you take it too far. And I think the Galaxy in this particular game, we're going to try to match the physicality of Seattle, who's a very physical team. And because of that physicality, you can get frustrated by it if you're not able to match it. And if you're trying to match that energy, then and you can't match it, then again, frustration sort of mounts and you sit in there. I thought the Galaxy tried to be too physical in this game, and it's not their game. They, especially Julian Aude, by the way, just played like a man who was ready to stab the first person that came near him. Ended up getting a yellow card in the 35th minute. It was a little dubious. Listen, the referee this was not a great game by the referee. There were so many questionable calls, and, Maya Yoshida basically says, I'm not going to talk about the referee because I don't want to get fined, and I know I'm going to get fined if I talk about the referee. Paraphrasing, but pretty much right there. So I understand the frustrations by it, but the Galaxy lost their cool in the physicality, and I think it went too far. It was a crutch by which they were sort of trying to find some success, in which they did find success. But it's like everything, it has to be in a balance. I asked all the guys whether or not they thought that they took it too far, whether the physicality was too much in this game, and it just wasn't. They all answered no, and I'm okay being on an island out there by myself. You lose Julian Aude, and you're only able to play him for 45 minutes because of the physicality that he wanted to put into this, and it was too much. Maybe the Galaxy were too hyped up for the physical nature of this game. You knew that Seattle plays this way. It's not incumbent on the Galaxy to try to match that play from other teams. They're not an overly physical team. You need some of it for sure, but it's not like you can go out there and go punch for punch with Seattle in terms of, their big bodies and their strong bodies and what you're going to do. In some ways, you'd want more physicality. You'd want more from Zonka and Yoshida to be a little bit more bruisers in there and make sure that people don't, De Rosario regrets trying to go through the middle or do anything that he's trying to do, especially on the second goal where you watch De Rosario flick the ball over. And so often when the Galaxy have been winning these games against, the Mexican teams or even against Colorado, we saw the bounces go their way. Well, Zonka gets his foot to a ball that De Rosario is trying to sort of chip over top of him, and it just barely rolls off the top of Zonka's foot. And of course, it rolls right into where De Rosario is. Yoshida tries to react to that, and I think misses the ball and misses the man. And then eventually, De Rosario walks it through, and Mitrovic is standing there with his hands up. Like, does anybody want to hit that guy? Especially with a ball that's bouncing around like that, there's usually not fouls that are going to be called in those particular areas. So I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth, which is the Galaxy were, in some cases needed to be more physical. They needed to foul in some places. They needed to do some things. And in other cases, I thought that they were relying on, quote unquote, their physicality to try and make this game with Seattle, closer. That, hey, we're going to match you, punch for punch, blow for blow. We're going to be right there with you. We're going to force you to pay attention to us and all that stuff. And I think that because of that, they stopped playing their game a little bit, and certainly, trying to get out quickly on the counter, and Seattle does a good job of making sure you can't do that. But the Galaxy had chances to sort of run in some different areas. Barry had one ball in the middle where he sort of turns it and is able to go through two guys, and it's just, he's getting hit and hit every time, and that's sort of what you want to see from a defense on the side, which is, everything is making it more difficult for me to play because I'm getting hit on it. The physicality for the Galaxy in my mind went into the emotional side of things, and whenever it goes emotional for me, I think that's where they lost it. So I'll be the one to say that the Galaxy in some ways were too physical with Seattle, or trying to match Seattle, or trying to play a game that maybe isn't the Galaxy's game as much as what it is. But it's 2025, and I can't really tell you exactly what the Galaxy's game is. Just know that when they have success, they're able to get in behind defenses. They're able to use the speed of Joseph Paintsel and Gabriel Peck, of which there was none of that against Seattle. Again, credit to Seattle, or the LA Galaxy not being able to find ways to play the ball in behind. I didn't get to talk to Greg Vanny because I was out in the mix zone. Mix zone. Only one more time do I get to do mix zone. No, maybe two with Campeones Cup. But mix zone. So I was able to talk to some players. Let's start with somebody we can actually talk to and hear from. I was talking to Maya Yoshida, and I said, do you guys as a defense need to be more aggressive? Is that what you're sort of allowing? You're allowing too much space. I was talking to Miguel Berry. Miguel Berry was sort of saying, the goals were too soft. But here's Maya's response to that, and let's see if we can get it to play.
It's just individual mistakes. Of course, we need more solidarity, not only this game, but through the whole season. We conceded too many goals. I'm tired about this. You know that. Everybody is frustrated about this. We need a better defender, for sure. But it's not happened today. It's not happened this season, since last season, or even before.
So Maya Yoshida saying, basically, the defending hasn't happened this season. It didn't happen last season, so it hasn't happened. We need to be better, yes. And again, I'll paraphrase him. The goals were soft. We need to be better. We made mistakes. The whole deal. I think Maya's also under the opinion that they had 2 mistakes. They had like 5 mistakes, and they were only punished on 2 of them. But you look at Maya Yoshida and what he's trying to do. He's telling you the defense is good enough, hasn't been good enough, wasn't good enough last year either, wasn't good enough the year before that. So it's important to Maya, certainly. And it was, I think it was Rob, Jalen, asked Maya, is like, what's the motivation? How do you motivate yourself for the rest of the year? You guys are in the 3rd place game. And to a man, everybody said 3rd place game is the most important thing. We need Concacaf Champions Cup. We need to do it for Ricky. We need to make sure that he gets to play in the tournament next year. So, there's a lot of things that sort of can go for the Galaxy and go that way, but they have to figure out this 3rd place game. But it was asking about Maya Yoshida, like, what's your motivation after that though? And Maya sort of said, it's not about the money for me. He goes, I need to get better every single day. And he goes, I think everybody else needs to get better every single day. And he goes, I'm not here for the money. Like, I could go retire, that type of thing, which I thought was, an honest response from Maya Yoshida. I talked to John Nelson a little bit about what happened and sort of where he said how the start went. So let's hear from John Nelson just about how the start went.
Yeah, I think we started way too slow. I know we needed to come out better. They were putting balls in behind us, just making it difficult for us. I thought we could have done a little more. Then it took us 20, 30 minutes to really get into it, really get into their box. A team like that, if you start slow, they're going to punish you, and that's exactly what they did.
This was a physical.
I just think Seattle's such a good team where you give them a little space. I don't even know if we really made that much mistake. I mean, they just punish us. They punish us. That's what they do to teams that do that. And no, I wouldn't say that. I thought we were fine in the physical aspect. Maybe we could foul a little more. But no, like I said, Seattle is such a good team. You give them a little space, and they're going to punish you.
It's on Seattle.
Yeah.
You guys have. So there's little John Nelson talking about Seattle punishing. Let's see. Executive producer Herb, by the way, super chat. We can stop for a second. Hey Josh, what is your favorite movie involving an airplane or train? Cliche wise, airplane. Top Gun is always one of my favorites. I grew up with that. Nobody will watch that movie with me because I can repeat every line. A train. What's the one? And I can never remember the name of it. We talk about it at the train club all the time, though. The one where it has Denzel Washington in it and Unbreakable. Is that the one where the train is running away? And that's just great. It's totally not feasible. Adam, by the way, $5 super chat. Thank you, Herb. Always appreciate it. Adam, $5 super chat. Josh, was Zonka one of the worst signings in Galaxy history, off-season signings? If not, who was it to be? I mean, we could go to Michael Ciani, Jorgen Skjelvik. We could go to Yanni Gonzalez. That's always a fun one. The Galaxy have struggled to find international center backs that have really, sort of fit into that spot. There's lots there. There's this myopic focus on Zonka. I actually think he's the piece that you probably still move, whether or not you can in the offseason or not. You're still having him for another year, so technically Galaxy are stuck with him. But I still think that there's probably value to him in Europe somewhere, and perhaps somebody will want him, and you could move him and clear up that, even if it's for free. even if you move Zonka for free, even if you terminate a contract, you just get out of the $600,000 of the salary cap hit and everything that you have there. That's a better deal. So, I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to sort of play those games, but we often forget, sort of where the Galaxy have been with defensive players since Omar and AJ left, right? Omar Gonzalez and AJ De La Garza left. Excuse me while I get some water. It's a long show. I need to have a breather every once in a while. So yeah, that's for me. I got Jam says, I want Vandy to say it's my fault. I have no answers. Yeah, and if he said that, you guys would lose it. 100%. So no, you don't. You just pretend that you do. So yeah, that's sort of my take, I think, on the game. I thought Seattle was a really good team, and I imagine, it's my guess, that Seattle very well is going to beat Miami in the final. It's up on turf too, so I think that's does Messi even travel for that? Orlando, let's flip it a little bit. And just we'll talk about the schedule first, but the Galaxy playing at 2 p.m. at Dignity Health Sports Park. That's LA Galaxy versus Orlando. That is the third place game. And again, the big reason that this is an important game and why you should want to go to this game and why you should want to watch this game is the Galaxy need to win this third place game. They need to get that Concacaf Champions Cup spot because they are not getting it any other way. They will not even, to my knowledge, won't even be involved in the League's Cup next year. So they won't have that in there. They'll probably be in the U.S. Open Cup, but not League's Cup. All right, if all the ways that they're sort of trying to change and move these different tournaments stays the same, that's sort of where it is. So you need that CONCACAF Champions Cup spot because it allows for what we assume will be a healthy Ricky Puig to come in and help this team possibly do something in that tournament. So the third place game is gigantic. It is LA Galaxy and Orlando City. It is absolutely one of my favorite coaches in the whole wide world. Oscar Pareja is coming in. Always love Oscar and always like watching his teams. Orlando is playing well. Orlando got jobbed in Miami. Not that anybody is surprised, by the way. That was set up for a long time. I won't say who, but somebody walked through. We were all watching the game in the press box. Somebody walked through and said, "What? Orlando's still winning? Somebody's going to have to get on the red phone here pretty soon," and sort of the implication was, Don Garber can't let this happen, that type of thing. Just Orlando got jobbed. There was a penalty, a cold stone penalty, a stone cold penalty. Let's try that. Not cold stone, although I am hungry for ice cream now. A stone cold penalty in that game that was not called for Orlando, and it's just laughable that anybody would look at that and say that's not a penalty. It should have been called on the field immediately. It was obvious. And then to watch the penalty that Miami gets on the other side, just absolutely crazy. I say this not because, hey, we should all watch the Orlando-Miami game and that was fun to do. No, I say this because Orlando feels aggrieved. And that either works its way in one way. Well, first of all, Orlando was just out here not too long ago playing, was it Toluca? I believe it was Toluca in Leagues Cup. So they were at Dignity Health Sports Park. Then they flew back. Then they had to go in Miami. And then they played in Miami. They got hosed in Miami. Now they have to fly all the way back across the country again. Advantage LA Galaxy. I mean, that's the only way that you can say this. Advantage LA Galaxy all day long. So there's a real chance that the LA Galaxy can, if they play well, take Orlando to the woodshed and walk away with the third place CONCACAF Champions Cup. Now, again, I think I've talked about it. There's still a chance even the fourth place could make it. Maybe Seattle wins MLS Cup after winning Leagues Cup, and then there's extra spot, and it slides down to the Galaxy and blah, 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 the whole deal. But I don't think you want to wait for CONCACAF or MLS or Liga MX to figure out where their slots are going and for what, because that usually doesn't work out well. So there's a real chance here for the LA Galaxy to jump on a tired and hopefully emotionally defeated team that was winning 1-0 in the second half until everything went sideways for Orlando, and a lot of it not due to their own fault. I don't know how you sleep at night for that one, but it's a difficult one to watch. We were laughing about it in the press box whenever we were watching that. So again, it all feeds into the psyche. Orlando could be on a redemption tour where they're like, we got screwed, and now we're going to come back and we're going to take it out on the LA Galaxy, or it could be like, I can't believe we have to fly to LA again. Why are we even playing this third place game? We should be playing in the final right now. blah, 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 the whole deal. The league's wet dream of having the LA Galaxy and Miami in a final is gone. There was a chance that maybe a third place game would draw just as big, which would have been an interesting thing. Could have been Miami and the LA Galaxy in the third place game, but that's not how it is. It is Miami and it is Orlando for that third place game. And Orlando has some talented players, but you're not going to jump up and be like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Brekalo is out because he got a red card in this Miami game. Galese is one of the best goalkeepers in Major League Soccer. They play a really good system. Pasalic up top and Atuesta in the middle. I think it's Arujo who plays in the center there, and you have Ojeda and Muriel. So these guys can play. They're very good at what they do, and Oscar Pareja has a system that isn't as conservative as it has been. He's a lot more attack-minded, a lot more vertical strikes, and so the Galaxy will have their hands full, or they should. Orlando's game plan is probably not going to be to sit back at the start of this game and try to, eke something out at the end. Maybe you take penalty kicks, that type of thing. My guess is Orlando comes out and lays it all on the line in the first 30 minutes. Whether the Galaxy can match that and keep them in place will be interesting. I watched Orlando play Toluca. It was a boring game. There was one shot on goal, but Orlando had that one shot on goal. They are capable of winning ugly. So the Galaxy now have to focus all that. And I have question marks about the Galaxy. I questioned Orlando and whether they had the emotional fortitude to sort of bounce back after getting screwed in Miami and come back and play in LA. And I have the same questions about the LA Galaxy because those guys were dejected. Every single one of them. Because they knew their season was over and that it's unlikely they lift a trophy in 2025. Josh, what about, Champions Cup? Cool story, bro. It's a exhibition game, one-off. I don't know that you should hold much. Could it be something? Sure. Is it going to save a season? It better not. You shouldn't be standing there going, oh yeah, look at this Champions Cup we got. That's not one of those that you said. Is it something? Absolutely. But it's a prize at the bottom of the Cracker Jacks. It's ancillary to the Cracker Jacks. The Cracker Jacks didn't taste good. The prize isn't going to make it feel any better. So the Galaxy have to bounce back for this. And what kind of rotations do we see from Greg Vanney on this? You're hopeful that Amiro Garces is ready to go. Nascimento was limping whenever I saw him after the game. I would expect that's a no-go, right? So Nascimento's not going to be back in. Do you start some of the younger guys like Harbor Miller? Do you go in with guys like, Parente or Ruben Ramos Jr.? Do you put in Rindolph? At defense, right? Are you trying to change things up there? If you don't have Amiro Garces, if Amiro Garces is back there, he can play with Yoshida, he can play with Zonka, and usually that works pretty well. At least recently it has. So, less concerned about that. Does Yamane get to start now? Does John Nelson get to start? So there's all these questions that have to be answered, and there's rotations that have to be made. But the bottom line is that the Galaxy need to take this little last sliver of whatever it is in 2025 and capture a Concacaf Champions Cup spot. And if they do that, it's not all for naught. Then we will all go, as the season is officially quote-unquote over, with the Galaxy still not officially eliminated from the playoffs, we can go and watch how the Galaxy start playing some of the younger kids in these games and sort of the lineups that change and what the LA Galaxy are trying to do, so that way we can look at what 2026 is. Adam, by the way, $2 super chat is the way the Galaxy can buy out Zonka. Yeah, sure. You could buy him. I think you could buy him. I know the Galaxy already used one of their buyouts, right? So they can't do that this year, but they could use it for next year. Certainly. It's a lot of money to buy out. I don't know that you want to eat it, but you could. So something to watch as it goes. It has to be different on Sunday, and it's a weird time at 2 p.m., and it's going to be hot, and it's in the afternoon. Advantage LA Galaxy for the most part. Orlando's used to playing in hot, steamy weather, so it's hot, steamy weather right now, so I don't know that it's a huge advantage, but the travel and everything else that Orlando has to do is certainly in the Galaxy's favor. So, at the end of it, it's going to be, do you want it? Can you execute to take it? And who on the LA Galaxy is going to step up to make that a reality? It's a short rest game. Everybody is. Vanney usually likes the extra day, so a Sunday instead of a Saturday is always good. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then you get a Sunday. So I would imagine that you're going to see very similar sort of starting lineups, whether or not there's one or two little changes here or there. Miro Garces comes in, Yamane starts, different little things that you can do. But I would also think that should this tick down towards the end of this game, that you could see guys like Tucker Lepley, you could see guys like Harbor Miller, you could see some of the younger guys sort of get in there and try to prove their worth. And, again, the biggest game the LA Galaxy have this season. It sucks that it's that way, but we're at that point. I mean, I've been joking around. You can book those November and December vacations, end of October, as soon as the season's over, you guys free to go. Book it, have fun with your families, enjoy. Last year, we were scrambling around trying to rebook things and say, well, we can't go anywhere because, the Galaxy might be in the playoffs and all that stuff. The Galaxy will get an offseason. Will Kuntz will get an offseason. There's lots of things to assess. We can just look on here. I'll bring up the thing before we close this out, right? We can just look on it. Ricky Puja's signed through 2027. Joseph Painstill through 2027. Gabriel Peck through 2028. Diego Fagundes' contract is up this year. Still, there's a club option. At his salary, I doubt the club will pick up the option, but he's at $1.3 million right now. That's somewhere that you could either look for a reduction in salary from Diego Fagundes if he wants to stay, or a place where you can pick up cap space. So there's room there. Marco Royce is signed through 2026. Miki Amane through 2026. Lucas Sanabria through 2029. Anybody, by the way, who's signed through 2026 means that you can move them in a window and get something for them still instead of letting the window run out. So it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be here next year. It means that there's an opportunity to capture possibly a transfer in some ways, right? Zonka is a 2026 guy. You have Nascimento, who is 2025, but has club options all the way through like 2029 and everything else. He's on loan, so we're sort of watching what that loan does and whether the Galaxy, that's a big decision that's going to have to be made. The Galaxy buy him. Christian Ramirez up at 2025. So everybody's watching that. Edwin Cerrillo, he is signed through 2026, club options through 2027. Maya Yoshida through 2026. Amiro Garces through 2028. Julian Aude through 2027. John Nelson's contract is up, but a club option. JT Marcinkowski's signed through 2026 with a club option in 2027. Let's see. Miguel Berry, 2025, but a club option. Eric Zavaleta is a 2025 contract expiration. Winder 2027 plus club options, take it all the way to 2028. Novak Mitrovic is through 2026 with a club option for 2027. Mauricio Cuevas 2025 with 2 club options that take it all the way to 2027. That's a deal and a half at a homegrown player that doesn't cost against the cap. That's always a plus. And if he could be your starting right back at a homegrown salary, even if you pay him more, you can pay him up to a certain amount, and I'd have to look what it is, but Mauricio Cuevas on a homegrown contract played up to a certain amount. He's currently a supplemental roster player as well, but you could get him as that starter and homegrown player. That would be a big deal. Isaiah Parente, Brady Scott, 2025 plus a club option. Parente, 2024, already into one of his option years, and so option year for 2025 and option year for 2026. Tucker Lepley is a 2024, but he's in the first year of 3 club options all the way through 2027. Harbor Miller, homegrown, doesn't hit the cap. He's signed through 2027 with a club option of 28. Ruben Ramos Jr. Is a 2027 plus 1, so 2028 for him. And then Nsenge, Asael Nsenge is a 2026 plus 2 club options all the way to 2028. So that's what I got right now. So that's sort of where we sit for the LA Galaxy roster. Bottom line is that the red is the highlights of sort of like that contract is up right now. Nascimento sort of has a question mark in there as well, so you could look at that. But that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players that I have just off the top of my head there that are going to be, either up or options this year. So that way the Galaxy can sort of look at that. What they decide to do with those, how they decide to do them is an interesting one. Adam, $5 Super Chat. Galaxy lost to Orlando this season already. What's Greg Vanny's record versus Oscar Pereira? Probably not great. Oscar Pereira is a really good coach. I really like him. I haven't looked up, though. So that's it. You now are set and sort of ready for what this game against Orlando means. And how the LA Galaxy need to react to the loss against Seattle. I would expect a similar reaction is going to come out of Oscar Pareja and his side in Orlando City. Excited to be able to see that game on Sunday. I actually think it's going to be a great game. I am looking forward to it. I think the Galaxy probably match up a little bit better with Orlando. I have not been super impressed with everything Orlando did, but I will tell you this: they are a good team, and Oscar Pereira is a good coach. And if you doubt either of those things, then they will punish you 100%. So that's what I got. A little solo show for you. I am working on a live show, possibly, and I will have details for that in the next couple weeks. Maybe we'll get it out to you as soon as we have. But I'm working on that. But I just wanted to thank everybody for stopping by. It's always good to see everybody at halftime. Always great to talk to everybody. Thank you for coming to our podcast on the night. Sometimes it's easier for me, especially on a busy day with U7 soccer practice, of course, on Thursdays now, just to sort of do things myself. It allows me a little bit more time to prep and a little less technological stuff. So I hope you don't mind of the inner workings of Josh Stream of Consciousness sort of podcasts here. Let's see. I did just finish a podcast on Titanic. If you were at all interested in that, I actually had just such an amazing time with this podcast. I can't even tell you. I want to make sure I get the name of it right. It is called Titanic Ship of Dreams. All right. If you're interested in the Titanic, and of course, because I'm a nerd, I've been a fan of the Titanic for forever, just reading books about it and all that stuff. Thought the podcast was good. I enjoyed it, but most of the time I'd listen to podcasts on the way home from Dignity Health Sports Park. So that would be my sort of nightcap there. So gonna have to look for a new podcast. If you have any other good, like sort of, non-soccer, I have plenty of soccer podcasts. Don't need those all the time. But if you have any good podcasts, you can certainly shoot them my way. I'm a big fan of the podcast. LA Galaxy have a new podcast out with Kobe Jones. Kobe's back. It's called Kobe Club, and they got their first one out. I think they're doing them monthly. The only thing I would say is need them more than every month. I mean, Kobe Jones, you could listen to that man talk every single day. Kobe could have a daily podcast where all he does is sit and read the news, and I would tune in. Man speaks knowledge of the game, and certainly has been around long enough to have seen, and his experience within the league and around the world is just super awesome. So, Joe says, Titanic, great topic choice after last night. It's not like the Galaxy hit an iceberg, all right? The Galaxy have been sinking this whole year, all right? But you know what, Joe? I don't hate. I could run with this with the simile or the metaphor. I could. The Galaxy, the best team ever created. Nature. What can nature do? Nature sends an ice cap. In this case, is a iceberg a salary cap? Is that what we're going with? So, Lazarus says, any plans of doing the Kobe Jones podcast? If Kobe calls, I'll be there with bells on. Kobe has way better guests than me, guys. That's not even funny. That's not even funny. It's that would be an insult to Mr. Kobe Jones himself. He doesn't need to do it. But anyway, it was great seeing everybody. There was a couple who came up to me, and I know that I want to say the name was it Christian or Kirshen? And his wonderful fiance, and I can't remember your name. I'm sorry. It's too hard. But they just got engaged. So Mazel Tov, congratulations. Thank you. It was so nice to meet you and say hello. I can't wait for the wedding. I know you guys just got engaged. I hope this wasn't news like that you're waiting to share with other people. You should have told everybody before you told me. All right. But congratulations. Anyway, if I broke the news, I apologize. Maybe I shouldn't have said it. Maybe, and we'll see. All right. That'll do it. LA Galaxy playing against Orlando City coming up on Sunday, 2 p.m. kickoff. I imagine it's going to be 10 to 15 minute lead in, so I'll get you kickoff times as soon as I know it, but 2:10, 2:15 probably is right around there. But we'll get you rocking and rolling on MLS Season Pass, on Univision, and on TUDNA, so you can follow all of that anywhere you're watching, and the LA Galaxy will be playing against Orlando City for the third place game and a possible Concacaf Champions Cup spot. All right. I'm tired. You're tired. You don't want to hear me talk anymore. I don't want to talk anymore. Still got some U7 training, plans to work out with my son now that he doesn't want me to help him out. Try to just shade to the right a little bit, shade to the left a little. You don't have to stand in one spot. We'll work on it. We'll get there. All right. The LA Galaxy playing Orlando coming up. Should be an interesting one. As for me, if you're looking for me, I'm Josh Gessman at Galaxy Podcast on any of those social media networks you can find. cornerofthegalaxy.com, YouTube, like, subscribe, Spotify. Anyway, tell your friends. We need your friends to tell a friend, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and that's how the podcast continues to grow. All right? LA Galaxy Orlando on Sunday. I'll be there. Hope to see you there as well. For all my amazing, wonderful co-hosts, I'm Josh Hatto Guessman. You've been listening to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have an absolute wonderful day.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.